We look at an image back to 1990s, a fashion advertisement by Calvin Klein featuring Mark Wahlberg in his young age, showing off his very muscular physique, and also showing that kind of youthfulness as a young Western man. So I think that has always been a very iconic image in the fashion industry, demonstrating some sort of ideal masculinity in the Western culture. I think when they determine what would be the best for the consumers, well, obviously they're not just considering a very abstract notion of what is pretty, what is not, what is good looking, and what is not. They also depend on how they perceive what would be well received in the society. And in such a Western-centric society, I think in many ways they're constrained by that specific type of gender ideology when they determine what is pretty, what is not, the ideal height for a model, the ideal facial features for a model, the major market in the society in the West, and most of these powerful organizations, you're talking about the media organizations, you're talking about these fashion brands, most of the people who are occupying an important positions within those organizations, I think those people will make a big influence in the process of deciding who and what to use, which will be the best to use. Even now, it's not quite a common thing for the Western brands to have Asian, whether they are models or celebrities, to be the feature model for a celebrity. I think one of the reasons is that it is not receptive to the Western customers or to the Westerners who are too used to the Western culture, too used to the Western notion, the ideal notion of masculinity. I think the situation has been improved if you perceive it in such a way, meaning that there are more and more Asian faces appearing in the mass media, in the TV shows, in the movies, in the fashion ads, in the fashion shows, etc. But then there's a more complicated question, whether these images of the Asian stars, celebrities, models, whether they look more and more like the Western celebrities, talking about their physique, talking about their facial features, talking about the new look after plastic surgery. It looks more and more westernized. For Asian men, no matter which specific East Asian or Asian region they're coming from, when they think about doing plastic surgery, they would like to make the nose more prominent. They would like to have double eyelids. They would like to reshape their facial feature, the jaw, or whatever. In some way, they would like to make themselves looking more and more masculine in the Western standard. But there's also another trend in Asia, especially because of the rise of Korean wave. They actually prefer making themselves looking the so-called more feminine in the Western eyes. There could be people making themselves having a double eyelids, but there are also people making their single eyelids more prominent, more Asian, and then doing all sorts of things that making their face looking more Korean in that sense. But that's the new standard, at least one type of masculinity being regarded as a notion of ideal masculinity in the Asian context. And actually that has been a Korean wave of that sort of ideal masculinity, disseminating through the Western societies as well. Especially from the students that I've met coming from other countries, they said to me they are so infatuated with that kind of feature, and in their perception they think that that's something very Asian, very pretty, which is not something that they can see in the Western society. I actually didn't do my undergraduate study, even master's study in sociology. I did undergraduate study in literature, and mine in fine arts. And then I did my MPhil, my master degree in comparative literature in gender and film studies. But But then, of course, throughout my undergraduate and postgraduate study, the subject also comprised theoretical study, social theory, etc. That also initially attract me to, well, the study of social science on the one hand, and on the other hand, because after graduation, I started working in the media industry for a certain period of time, and then I worked in the design house, and eventually I worked in an advertising agency, serving different brands, from pharmaceutical brands, from FMCG, and also some of the fashion and cosmetic brands. I think that's the very moment that drew my attention to all these very interesting popular cultural phenomena in the society. And even though I was working in the industry, but I was always intrigued by the idea that being an academic and being a teacher. So later on, I started thinking about if there would be a chance for me to go back to the academia, and then I started applying for doing my PhD on a part-time basis while I was doing my full-time work in the industry. And that is a very interesting combination. I got some work experience in the industry. I know a bit more about what's going on in the industry, the cultural industry in particular. And then I thought, well, maybe some of the things that I use and I studied in the past could actually apply in the real situation in the society. So I sort of shift my discipline, academic discipline, a little bit. Apart from just studying the theories, I also would like to make use of a more social scientific method, actually participating, engaging in the industry, apply those theories and observe what's going on and analyze such social and cultural phenomena in a more nuanced way. So that's how I shift to the study of popular culture. And fashion is one of the cases that I thought back then, not many people were actually doing that, but it's such an interesting topic, and there were already a lot of people, scholars, academics doing that kind of research. So I thought, well, maybe I could be the one, especially because of my personal interest as well. So I started doing that. The way we define what's meant by ideal masculinity, usually we are talking about in the Western concept, well-built or even muscular type of body, tall and prominent features, and of course the colors of your hair and the colors of your skin, or even your socio-economic background, education level. All these attribute to one's perception of what's meant by ideal masculinity. But if you're talking about femininity, well, it's talking about how slender you are, how prominent is your breast as a woman, and also whether you have long hair, whether you have certain type of facial features. And in that sense, well, statistically, if that's not something intrinsic or biological, more Asian women would have that kind of physique when compared to the, well, relatively stronger, physically stronger Western women. So that's why, according to that standard of ideal masculinity and femininity, actually the perfect combination would be an Asian woman and a Caucasian man. The notion of ideal masculinity interplays with many different concepts, many different categories, like your social class, like your age, like your body shape, like your race and ethnicity, or even your sexual orientation. I think in the contemporary society, it's becoming more and more important for one to a very muscular physique, over-muscular physique, and that signifies the ideal masculinity. So I think even if you are a Caucasian, but if you don't have that kind of physique, but that muscular physique is, I think it is also somehow different from the kind of muscular physique being adored in 1970s and 1980s with these bodybuilders, that kind of physique, because that kind of masculinity would be in some way different from the kind of metrosexual masculinity being adored right now. Because on the one hand, this ideal masculinity, this ideal masculine image would be the kind of men who are showing a very muscular image, but they're also showing some sort of feminine side of themselves if you're using traditional notion of masculinity. So I think in Asian society or in the around the world, they're not just looking up to the kind of so-called Western masculinity, because even in the West, masculinity is not one singular, not just a singular notion. It consists of a lot of different types of masculinities. And I think it's actually being more and more difficult to become the focus of attention as an Asian man in the Western showbiz and in the international media platform. Well, when you talk about Jackie Chan, when you talk about Jet Li, even talking about the Asian Bruce Lee, they perpetuate and they represent certain type of masculinity, Asian masculinity in the media, and reinforcing that kind of a conception and understanding of Asian masculinity, and associating that kind of masculinity as the ideal notion in Asia. The fashion industry, which in many ways connected to the entertainment industry with the celebrity culture, with all these media outlets. But the fashion industry, at least in the fashion industry, I have seen some changes. For example, some internationally well-known brands like Prada, like Louis Vuitton, there are also some other examples as well. Even H&M, the fast fashion brands. They start using Asian models, if not only Chinese, but also Korean or from other parts of East Asia, featuring them as the lead models in the international advertising campaign, or at least regional advertising campaigns, even using them as the spokesperson in the Asian market or in the Chinese market. Well, that has a lot to do with the rise of economy in mainland China and its leading role as a major source of consumption across the globe. So many of these fashion brands or luxury brands, they shift their focus in the Chinese market and Asian market. And because of this economic commercial logic, they have, in order to attract these people from Asia, especially those who are from China, they have to change the communication strategy, fashion communication strategy. So they have to use the kind of celebrities, the kind of endorsers that these audience can relate to, can identify with. So when we are seeing that, we have been undergoing this whitewash and being in many ways ideologically, culturally manipulated by the Western standard of beauty and masculinity. I think it differs in different regions. In Hong Kong, of course, because of the colonial history, because of the fact that we have been so westernized throughout the years because of all these international culture exchange. So Hong Kong is a little bit different from other Asian contexts. For example, even in Korea, South Korea, even in mainland China, the situation will be totally different. Only until the past 5 to 10 years, you have seen more Asian faces, the Korean fashion models, male fashion models, and some of the more well-known mainland Chinese fashion models, not even Hong Kongese fashion models. They appear on the catwalk and in the fashion shows. Very similar to what I've said just now, because of the rise of economy in China, because of the rise of cultural power in China, they also affect the way the commercial world try to tap into the economy, tap into the consumption market. So that's why these cultural values has been translated into economic values, and on the other hand, the economic value has been translated into cultural values. I think that has also influenced the way we perceive Chinese masculinity. In the near future, I think in the society is not just about, especially in this digital age, social media age, and then especially when in our everyday life, it's not just about the media representation, the portrayal of men and women in this in the mass media. I think it's also about the way we interact in the society with other people. We create different discourse, and this discourse and this ideas and culture being perpetuated, being circulated in the society. So what I'm trying to say is that on the one hand, of course, there are more and more occasions for the Asian notion of masculinity being produced, being disseminated in and through the media, and especially because of the rise of new media. Social media is not just being circulated within the local context geographically, but it can be easily disseminated, circulated around the world because of, well, the ICT infrastructure. But on the other hand, the consumers, the audience, they can always comment on it. They can always discuss with other people, sharing their comments and ideas, and they are in many ways in the offline world are still affected by, controlled by the traditional notion of gender ideology. So whenever they see an image like that, of course they can say, "Wow, that looks cool." There's the ideal image of a Korean man. They look cool, they look so non-Western, but they're still very attractive. On the other hand, people comment that, well, they're not masculine enough. They're too effeminate. They don't look like the way, like Ryan Gosling, for example. So this kind of interaction would still, or online and offline, still perpetuate, reinforce the traditional notion of masculinity, Western masculinity, in and through the media in our society. So on the one hand, there are more and more discourse about what Chinese or Asian masculinity is being generated in the society. But on the other hand, there's an ideological regulation happening in the societies too. So yeah, I think, and that's still because of the media outlets, the celebrity culture, the entertainment industry around the world, they are still in many ways dominated by the Westerners, I would say. So they are the majority. They still have the power to regulate because of whatever reasons, culturally speaking, economically speaking. They can use a celebrity from Asia to feature in that advertisement. But behind the scene, they could say that it's only because of the Chinese customers. They like that kind of masculinity, so I'm using that. But doesn't mean that I think that's the way I perceive as the ideal notion of masculinity, or like it as an ideal man that I would perceive.